Hey everybody, happy Friday. LTR Digital World Headquarters in Minnetonka, Minnesota. It is Friday, December 7th, around 10 minutes before 3 Central Standard Time. And
Should we,
it's my business partner, Dale Brosey.
the back of him? Yeah.
What?
The back of him? They can't see
yeah.
me yet.
So he's a bit methodical in his movements. As my wife would say, I'm very methodical as well. So
Okay.
we're going to have three topics today. Two are a little more in depth than the third, but we're going to keep you in light with all the current information from this week. And you got anything to talk about? Share?
Like before we get into it? No.
Okay, we're going to move along.
Yeah.
See how quick that works? You know, it's good to be the moderator in this because you keep it moving along. So first topic has to do with local reviews, right? So I think all of us to a certain extent probably look at reviews and utilize them in some way, shape, or form. For me, during the buying process or the buying cycle, as I go through things, when I find something I'm interested in, whether it's a product or service from a local, not even local, even on Amazon, I'll do all the research around, does it fit for what I'm looking for? And typically the last thing I look at are reviews. And I'll read the reviews, but I will say I'm influenced earlier in the process if there are star ratings for a certain thing and it shows that it is less than three or less, I'll say, with a lot of reviews, then it might influence me quicker.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's kind of my mental process that I go through. But in this first article that you talk about, you got a comment?
No, I was going to say, I mean, what you bring is an interesting point. I mean, we're going to be talking about reviews specifically in this first article, but when we present these topics to you and we talk about all these things, whether it's SEO, your Google Maps listing, all these types of things, really what Pat just kind of brought up was that path to purchase thinking. And
path,
but path, P-A-T-H. And really, when you think holistically in marketing, that's what it's all about. That's what SEO is about. That's what Google listings are about. Everything is making that path to purchase as complete as possible for the consumer. Because if a consumer, if reviews and star ratings and what have you is part of their path, part of their decision-making process, and that's not there, you kind of throw them off, right? Or you influence them. So all of these things that we talk about, you know, you can look at the individual strategies, but then look at the bigger picture too.
Yeah. You know, and a good example too is you know, we do local SEO for clients, and in one of the reports for there's two locations within this company that we're doing local SEO for, and in both of them, their star ratings, their reviews are substandard or suboptimal, or, and to be quite honest, sub acceptable. You know, so there has to be. We're encouraging them to go through a process to garner more reviews from people that they know have had satisfactory work, right? So it does influence, you know, local search rankings as well. So
yep, absolutely.
But anyway, onto this article here. It talks. The headline is 85% of consumers think local reviews older than 3 months are not relevant. As I think through what I just described, my path to purchase, I will look at the age of the review. I have to say I don't have a set date in mind, you know, but I try to get more current ones than historical ones, I guess. So
yeah.
So I think I would tend to agree with this. You know.
Sure.
Yeah. But you want to add some thoughts there? So.
No, I just think that, I mean, so this is something you're talking about, you know, a recent engagement where reviews come up. I mean, this is certainly something that understanding that you got a lot to do on a daily basis to manage your business, run your business, and so on and so forth. The recency of the reviews that you got is something that can easily fall off the radar and just not pay attention to. So if nothing else, this is just kind of touching bases again with your local listings and your reviews, and look at it. Are my reviews 3 years old?
Yeah.
You know, and that does kind of for some people sway the influence. So we'll talk on some points in here too, is that sometimes the trick is just simply ask for reviews. You know, it's not a mystery. Sometimes all you gotta do is ask, but that's a data point later on. Yeah, so we can get into some of these data points. Did any jump out at you? For me, the first one was when you get right into the numbers. And this, again, this was originally from SEMrush, which we tend to cite sources that we trust and that are well known. But this also comes from a study from Bright Local, and we use Bright Local a lot for as a tool and what have you as well. So it says a significant number of consumers, 40%, take into account reviews written within the past 2 weeks. That number is growing. It's up 18% year over year. So this is, if we're seeing this trend, as we go into 2019, just kind of talking about, well, in 2018 we saw growth. What will 2019 be? For me, the next 3 points in a row that kind of jumped out is talk about searching for local businesses and reading reviews. Now, we talked about in previous live streams, Google is beginning to blur local search and search in general and what the SERPs look like, and local intent and proximity to searches. So this one did say searching for local businesses and reading reviews, but you don't have to be a local business to have reviews. You don't have to be a local business to have a Google My Business listing, and we're going to suggest everybody have it. So really don't think that, oh, I'm not, a neighborhood business, I don't need it. But it said 27% searched online daily for local business. That's more than double than a proportion from 2017. So more people are using local search and Google My Business to conduct local searches. It says 69% searched online for businesses monthly. So that was 27% daily, 69% monthly, and then 56% search for local businesses weekly. So there's a lot going on there. And if you're not taking advantage of some of these things, you could be missing a lot of that search behavior and search activity. It did mention in here, though, that if we were looking at all the age segments, this type of behavior does tend to skew younger as a majority. It's not saying that older 55 plus don't do it, but it does skew to that 18 to 34-year-old age
just
group.
Outside of that range.
Yeah, what are you, 36, something like that? Yeah. And then the other part too, and then we'll jump through some things. It says overall, 86% of all consumers read reviews for local businesses at least occasionally. So these are powerful numbers. After reading positive reviews, 50% of consumers will visit a website or a local business, which is up 37% from 2017. So again, big influencer. And then we were talking about getting reviews, and it says, I'll get to that. It says positive reviews make up 60% of the consumers. Positive reviews make 68% of consumers more likely to use local business. Now, this is the reason I highlighted this. It's not uncommon when we engage with a business or when we talk to business owners about their local listing, they say, how do I get rid of negative reviews? Or how do I hide negative reviews? Or how do I influence that? And we talked about that before. This is a Google property. If we're talking about Google reviews, you can use other sources like the service that you pay for, subscriptions, so you get reviews. For Google My Business and Google listings, the reviews are property of Google. They're not your property, so you can't delete negative reviews, right? You can respond to them, and we always encourage you to do so. So this where it says positive reviews make up 68% of consumers, make 68% of consumers more likely to use local businesses. Negative reviews stop 40% of consumers of wanting to use a business. And the point I want to make there is it's walking that fine line, because Google also knows that if you have a business and all you have is positive reviews, in the past, they've viewed that as suspicious.
Yeah.
So you got to have a mix of positive, neutral, and maybe some negative to look natural.
Just let the reviews happen.
Let the reviews happen, and then, and then also I've seen in past with businesses, they might get a really negative reviews, seen it before in restaurants, a really negative review. And simply by using the ability to respond to reviews, acknowledge that they had a bad experience. You don't have to fix everything, and don't get confrontational in reviews because it's published for everybody to see. But sometimes just acknowledging it.
Just acknowledge it, take it offline.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last point I wanted to make here is, it says, when asked if they ever have written a review for local businesses, 89% of consumers said they would consider it. So again, sometimes maybe all you got to do is ask. If people had a good experience at your business, Just say we'd appreciate it if you leave a review. And that's the other part too. You can't incentivize reviews. That's forbidden. At least publicly, you can do it. You know,
under the table.
Under the table.
You know.
That's it for that one.
Okay. So let's move on to Amazon. And Amazon emerges as search advertising powerhouse. Interesting enough, this topic came up in one of our meetings with one of our clients this week in reference to Amazon and the power of advertising via their platforms and the reach that Amazon is starting to garner. You take it from there as far as what are the key points of this article?
Yeah, so on a broader term, let's tie this back to kind of, again, to Pat's opening remarks, was we talked about path to purchase. And Amazon itself, in a lot of different verticals, it's not just in, you know, diapers and lawn care stuff. There's a lot of stuff. Amazon is a natural part of the path to purchase or that research stage that people go through. So we've seen in 2018, Amazon starting to come out of the woods a bit and emerging more as we want to be a participant on equal levels as digital advertising as Facebook and Google. And they're really making some inroads in that. And they're able to leverage the fact that they control a big piece of that research phase, just as much as paid search does on AdWords. There's the Google search too, or being present, on Amazon too. So they've really buckled down in 2018 and looked, how do we create a more solid business model in 2018 going forward to be able to disrupt that duopoly. And the point that they made in here is that it says right here, the duopoly share, when we talk about the duopoly as it's referred to, that's the Facebook and Google. The duopoly share of new digital ad dollars is declining. It's forecast to garner only about 48% of the new ad spend in 2018 versus 73% 2 years ago. So Amazon is definitely taking a piece of that pie. And this starts off with the fact that it's on track to generate more than $10 billion in advertising revenue. So they are becoming a player. And like we talked in the meeting with the client, somebody might think of Amazon advertising and think of, well, that's advertising on Amazon. Well, Amazon's actually breaking out of their walled garden and going into display advertising outside of Amazon. So there's kind of a mind shift when we think about Amazon. Well, I'm sure we'll be talking about it more in 2019. What's Amazon up to, and is there an opportunity to leverage Amazon as an advertising channel? So, and there's talks in here about it, you know, it's less expensive and so on and so forth. But yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about Amazon going into 2019 for sure, because you know what? You got to keep your eyes on what they're doing. Starting out as an online powerhouse, and now they're moving offline with the purchase of Whole Foods, and their logistics network is becoming second to none.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to follow them. And so, to your point, you know, they're getting outside the walled garden of Amazon from their advertising perspective, and it'll be interesting to see how they butt heads with Google and everybody else that's in that space.
Absolutely.
So it'll be interesting to see.
Well, it's also interesting too right now is that Amazon's the only one. We talked about GDPR lately in the past and what's going on. Amazon's the only one that's not feeling the pressure. Facebook's feeling the pressure in Europe, and Google's feeling the pressure too. So Amazon's the only one that's not feeling the pressure. However, the one thing that article did talk about too is in 2019, as we look at more legislation possibly coming out and how what legislation gets put in place to kind of bring these power players into place, that could affect what 2019 looks like too.
So, okay, on to the third. Which is Microsoft is building its own Chrome browser to replace Edge. So any of you Edge players out there, which is the Microsoft browser, which do you know what the percentages are?
You know what? How many people actually use Edge?
Use Edge relative to Chrome, relative to Safari.
That's a great question. No, I've never seen the numbers. We know that Chrome is the most used.
Yeah.
By far.
Yeah. I use Edge just to experiment things that we're doing for clients, just to see it in a different browser, see if I can not be cookied in a different browser, things of that nature. So, so anyway, you can make your comments about the direction that Microsoft is going.
Yeah, you know what? We don't spend a whole lot of time in the technical aspects of things or the geeky side of things. So this really wasn't intended to be like, what is that? What does it really mean? I just thought it was an interesting bit of news from Microsoft, which was also a big player with the Bing product and what have you. For them to kind of capitulate on the browser thing and say, all right, we kind of give up on Edge, and we're going to build using Chromium, which is the protocol that Chrome browser is built on. A lot of things are built on Chromium as a protocol, but for them, the native in Windows 10, I believe, and beyond, it's going to be Chrome-based. Now, does this signify a future tighter relationship between Google and Microsoft in the ad products and data, so on and so forth? So I kind of added this in here because, number one, it's an interesting piece of news that you can say goodbye in the future. You can say goodbye to Edge. And then also, maybe it's something to watch in 2019 to see what happens between Microsoft and Google, because Microsoft is, like I said, a big company that's kind of been left out of that duopoly thing, right? There's money to be made, so.
Yeah, you might be right. My first reaction would have been no, but there's one comment in here, and I guess it speaks to why they're going a different direction. It's just there's been growing frustration inside Microsoft at Edge's web compatibility issues, and businesses and consumers have been pushing the company to improve things.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably just such a cost center that it's just like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, if you can move dev teams to something else and allocate your spaces, and who knows what the agreement might be. I don't know if there's going to be something that's not mentioned in here, but is there some agreement that says, okay, fine, you can build your native browser using our protocol if you give us access to some stuff. So who knows? Will that mean that Chrome plugins will work in Edge? So it was just an interesting piece of news to wrap up the week.
Yeah. So, which wraps up this live stream as well. So everybody have a great weekend, and anything fun going on?
Just be safe out there.
Be safe. Shout out to one of our biggest fans out there, Mike Woolley from Wells Fargo.
Oh.
Because mortgage broker, and he's a big shot with them. But what's kind of cool is he's finally getting in social. I'm starting to see him on LinkedIn posting things, commenting. Good going, Mike. I'm glad some of these live streams help motivate you to get to where you need to be. So, kudos. All right. Peace out.
Take care, everybody.